Yeah, I don't know. We like cut off the music right around 10. People kind of hung around to chat for a little while longer, and then eventually everybody fizzled out, and we were done cleaning up by like midnight. So it was great.
Sounds like my kind of party. Welcome to Noise Floor, a podcast about music and our favorite artists' discographies. I'm Troy Sennett.
And I'm Matt Kistler.
And today we are talking about Cassadaga by Bright Eyes. This is the, what is this, the 6th, 7th Bright Eyes record?
I think 7th, yeah.
Yeah, I should have had that ready before I before I started.
One of the articles we read claimed it was the 9th, and I have no idea where they got that number from.
Probably counting EPs.
Okay.
But yeah, so this is the follow-up to the big sort of double album release of I'm Wide Awake It's Morning and Digital Ash in 2005. This comes out in April of 2007, once again on Saddle Creek. And this is kind of a fascinating, I think, point in Bright Eyes' career, in Conor Oberst's life as a public figure. And I think there's a ton to dig into about this album. So Matt, start off. What was your connection to this record when it came out?
So weirdly, I feel like I kind of missed this record initially. I do know what was happening. I was in college and I was like doing other stuff besides listening to bands that I listened to in high school, but also still listening to a bunch of bands I listened to in high school. So I think I came to this a bit late, and I think I weirdly like came to it like sequentially in that like I think I found a copy of the Four Winds EP. Probably at a Hot Topic or something, in like probably 2008 or something. And I played the ever-loving crap out of that, and then eventually like moved on to Cassadaga. I will obviously get to that EP and the album and how how those two sounds mesh, in maybe a hypothetical alternate reality situation as one writer did it. But yeah, I don't know. Like I wasn't like on board for like the promo cycle of this record, which I really wish I had been, because all the Magic Trick stuff is beautiful. And also just kind of the story behind the namesake of this album and like kind of Conor's relationship to it is wild. And I feel like I would have been very along for the ride had I been directly invested at the time. But what about you?
Yeah, so that was me. So this is like we talked about this before on this podcast about like the first album in a band's career where you get to experience the whole hype cycle, like the first new album after you become a fan. You know, for me, that was like A City by the Light Divided, or it was Suffer and the Witness, just to name a couple. And this was that one for me, because I had become a Bright Eyes fan around, 2005, 2006, during the I'm Wide Awake boom. And so the build up to this album in like early 2007, I was so excited. I weirdly never heard the Four Winds EP though, somehow. But I was so in on this record when it came out. Just the idea of this like kind of big sprawling Americana folk record with, I don't know that I had ever heard a fiddle played like it's played on this album before, and just this sort of mystery around like Conor as like a celebrity who you kind of always thought was maybe going off the rails a little bit, and maybe actually was, and just all the mystique that I had built up around this band as I was becoming a fan of them. And then to hear this album that is like maybe not a complete 180 in sound, but an evolution in every way that, doesn't really sound like the albums of theirs that I had already loved or the albums of theirs that I didn't love as much. And I thought it was really, really exciting. And I've always had felt like this album held a really special place for me, even though I think it is like halfway perfect and halfway I'm never sure how to feel about it.
Yeah, that's fair. I feel like with Digital Ash, we kind of talked about how that record has a very singular sound, and I think this one similarly has a like. Yes, it's Americana, but like it's also something else at the same time, and not even necessarily just in the places where the songs go in like kind of different directions from your Four Winds and your I'm struggling to pull another like strictly Americana song off this record, but like even the ones that are like more in line with like what we've heard from Bright Eyes before have this like distinct new flavor on this album that's like kind of hard to pin down.
Yeah, well, I think it's a lot of the orchestral elements are, I think, kind of pulling from this sort of vintage, like 60s, 70s, like orchestral pop tradition in a way that, and this is Nate Walcott's like real contribution to the band, I think, because he had joined the touring band in the Lifted era and obviously was involved in Digital Ash and I'm Wide Awake. But in the interviews about this album, they talk about how he was the one who really did the string arrangements and, played so many, different horns and stuff like that on this record. And I think that is an element of their sound that was really not, they had toyed with it before, but I think he opens up entirely new avenues for them on this record.
Yeah, they're in pretty much every interview that I read or watched, like somebody would bring up, oh yeah, there's this really cool part that Nate wrote, and it would be something different every single time, and it would happen often. So you can really tell that his influence was very, very direct and very big on this album. And like, for an album that I would describe largely as being like Americana, the strings are maybe the most distinct element on the whole thing. Like you said, I don't think I had ever heard somebody play a fiddle quite like that before this record. And I definitely like don't hear those kinds of like sweeping, orchestral pops type strings in music like this most anywhere else.
Yeah, I mean, they've got their place. I mean, like they've been happening since the Beatles, but
sure.
But yeah, to hear a band from this, that ostensibly is like, it starts off as like kind of a DIY band with their foot in emo. Yeah, you're right. Hardly anyone was this, or really is like quite this ambitious with their arrangements and their recording.
Yeah, and like to your point, this album maybe owes more to the Beatles than any other Bright Eyes album thus far, for sure.
I think so, yeah. I mean, that's the thing is like this, I guess as a starting point, I think this album was not particularly well received when it came out. I think it had its defenders from the beginning, and for instance, like Pitchfork kind of panned it a little bit. And I remember there being a lot of sort of pushback against it, whether that was because it was too polished or too sprawling, or the lyrical topics had kind of verged out from the relationship or kind of the tortured self themes into something a little more spiritual, a little more esoteric, and a little more like, I don't know, kind of worldly and even less political. This album's not really a political album as much, save for a couple songs. But I think that there's a lot, I think both thematically and in the making of the album, there's a lot that kind of you can dig into to sort of explain why this album is the way that it is.
Yeah, I mean, we've ended up in this place with a lot of bands thus far where there is band has their most successful records to date, or records, if you will. Really just record. It was mostly Wide Awake. But yeah, like what do you do after that? And some bands like let those expectations weigh on them. Some bands just try to go totally against whatever they have done before in an effort to keep things fresh for themselves. Some bands end up somewhere between. I would argue most bands end up somewhere in between because it's kind of hard to deal with those two things. And obviously Bright Eyes is in a different position than a lot of other bands we've covered because they're not like on a major label or anything like that.
Right.
In fact, they're on their own damn label. Yeah.
Yeah. They kind of own everything from the start. So they're the only ones who can tell themselves no in a way.
Right. Yeah.
And like, I can see that as a criticism of this album, that it's too maximalist and too polished, but like, I think that they pull it off. I think that this is sort of a blank check album and sort of a left turn that almost all completely, at least on paper, like totally works for me.
Yeah, I think by and large, like this record goes some weird places, but I think by and large, like those weird places service the songs and their subject matter. And I do like we've kind of talked about how Wide Awake and Digital Ash were this like kind of separation of these two like tendencies that Bright Eyes has, and then we've come back to Cassadaga, and we kind of end up in a place where they're melding together again, but in a different way than they ever have before.
Yeah, I really like that as a way of looking at this record, because it is like, it doesn't sound like I'm Wide Awake or Digital Ash, but
no,
it is. Here's a way to think of it. I think that I'm Wide Awake and Digital Ash are kind of two very like obviously musically, but also thematically kind of very interesting different records about like searching. One, like I'm Wide Awake is this kind of like album about searching for a new place, and Digital Ash is an album about like searching for meaning in all of the death that's around you. And this album is about finding. Like it's about trying to find contentment. It's about where can you go to try to find solace, to try to be okay, to try to cleanse. And it even like in a meta way is like the completion of like an arc to me, because this is the band kind of takes a break after this record. Connor makes a couple solo albums. There's lyrics on this album that feel like they're foreshadowing the end of a band or the end of an era. And I think all those things taken together, on top of the fact that it is, which we can talk about in a second, just made in a different way than any Bright Eyes album has been so far, I find that all really resonant. And it, like, you know, even if you don't know all of like the background of it, I think it kind of comes through on the album as like, this feels like it's leaning towards an ending. Yeah,
I would say so.
But so the thing that I mean, in getting into my like recording studio nerd corner or whatever, this is, I think, the first Bright Eyes record to have been recorded at a number of different studios around the country instead of just like the Mogus family basement or whatever, then what Presto Studios became in Omaha and Lincoln, Nebraska. Because they did in the liner notes that you have the details about this, but they tracked like 25 to 30 songs for this record across various sessions in Portland, Oregon, in New York, in Los Angeles, where they recorded a full orchestra at Capitol Studios. And then they did some work in Chicago with John McEntire from Tortoise, and then they finished up everything in Omaha. And this record, I don't know, do you hear like kind of the spread of this record like geographically? Do you think it feels pretty cohesive?
I think I do. I feel like these songs, like, I'm sure these songs were not like necessarily written in different locations, but yeah, you can kind of feel the, like, it's not that these songs like don't sound cohesive in a way, but like it does feel like this album goes through like kind of modes. And I'm not offhand sure how those map to the individual songs, except for what we were talking about kind of right before the podcast. But like, it makes sense to me that is how this album was made, as opposed to like, again, all kind of being made at Presto, all in like not one sitting, but like, you know, to the degree that like you sit down and you do a record at a studio.
Yeah, and it's not a reclusive record in the way that Bright Eyes records sometimes can be. Like it is communal in many ways, which I really love. But no, I think you're right. Like I would, even if I were to just guess like, okay, these songs were done in these sessions, like I would probably guess wrong. And I think it's cohesive enough in that way. And again, this is on Mike Mogus as like a just incredible producer and mixer, I think, to build the sound and the tone of this record out of, you know, many different sessions, which is like not an abnormal thing. Plenty of bands do it, but like this is the first time I think that this band has.
Yeah, exactly. And like that's no small feat when it's not something that you're used to.
Yeah, for sure. This is, I think, there's no way this is the first record we've talked about this won Grammys. We've talked about Paramore records, but this album did win a Grammy, which is really cool for its sort of physical production or packaging production. As I'm holding the CD in front of me here, is one of the coolest physical objects of the CD era, I think. That it just has this, the whole thing is this like spectral decoder, and it has this little like plastic thing you can take out and like slide over the artwork to see the actual art. It's very cool. I think the vinyl looks even better, although I don't have the vinyl. But I was kind of fascinated with this. Another, like, again, just like, oh, this band that is, I think, is already kind of mysterious and out there, has this album that you have to like slide this little thing over it to see the artwork. It's all mysterious, and there's like Easter eggs in here, and I think that stuff I was fascinated by it when I was younger, and I think it still is pretty cool.
It's still very cool. Not a lot of bands or artists go out of their way to put that much into packaging.
Oh, I guess we should talk about Cassadaga, the place.
Oh, yeah, we should definitely talk about Cassadaga, the place in Florida.
Yeah, because this album is named after a town in Florida where that has a high concentration of, or is completely populated by psychics. And this is a place that I guess one of Connor's friends told him about at some point, and he, I guess just for a little additional like career context, this is in the Digital Ash tour in 2005. Seems like it was very tough on the band and on Connor personally. And he seemed like he was in a very bad place after that. And he talks about like doing a big cleanse in Los Angeles in 2006. And then a friend telling him about this place where it's like 100 psychics are in this town. And you just kind of go there and you go to the bookstore and look up an address and you go to someone's house and they'll give you a psychic reading or whatever. And he's just fascinated by it. And he goes and visits there. And he says like, the woman who gave me my reading basically said, hey, you're on the right path. You might be winding around, but you're moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
Which is I think kind of a big element of this album.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine that when you are in a position like that in your life, you kind of expect to get like bad news or something like that, and not like that's almost a cop out thing to say, obviously, but like I do like that's kind of something that gave way to what we end up with here, because like I mean, that's not a bad way to look at life, kind of generally speaking. Like,
right.
Unless you're willing to blow your entire life up, in which case, I guess go ahead and do that. But
right. But like, I'm always kind of skeptical of psychics and stuff. And that is very like, that's good advice to give to anyone. Like, that's like,
right.
And so I'm a little bit like side eyeing this sort of concept based on that. But I think he says like, I got a lot of comfort out of it and it eases the anxiety a little bit. And like, I mean, that's in being able to think about life that way is a good thing no matter what.
Yeah, definitely.
The marketing for this record, the magic tricks are just little ads. You can look them up on YouTube. But they're magic trick. They're just like a magician doing tricks, and they're kind of wry and funny. And I think they're kind of poking fun at the sort of mysticism of the album and a little bit without like, touching too much on the actual psychic stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it's just these like, it's a magician and his assistant like doing magic tricks. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't, and sometimes they half work. And I'm trying to think of where. I mean, this must have been almost a decade after, but I do remember as a child watching the show Secrets of Magic Revealed, I think it was called, with the masked magician. Yeah. And like learning how like the solid steel rings work and stuff like that. And like you can kind of see, like if you know how that trick works, you can see how they get the rings like attached to each other, and you can see why it doesn't work when they like try to pull them apart, because they just try to tug them at a spot where there's not, an actual like split in the ring or anything like that. So it was very entertaining to get to watch those. And again, that was something I missed when this album originally came out. So it was kind of delightful to get to visit those for the first time.
Have you, I assume not, but have you kept up with the doings of Mr. M, the masked magician, aka Val Valentino, in the last 5 to 10 years?
I haven't, but I bet I'm about to be disappointed.
No, you're not. This is actually really cool. Where did this come up? Because obviously, my brother Cale is the amateur magician and has always been super into magic. And we were young kids when this came out, and we were glued to the screen every time the show was on. So this was like a big like bonding thing for us. He moved to Brazil, and his whole thing about like revealing the secrets of magic is just been a like firestorm popular there, because there's like a cultural distrust of like magic and mystics in Brazil, and in a way that he has been able to become like a true celebrity. He's like, I think, married to a Brazilian influencer now. He beat cancer. He's apparently living quite the life in Brazil.
Damn, that rules. I love that.
Yeah, there's I think it was an Atlantic article somewhere. There was a pretty fascinating article that I read on it a while ago that that it was just like, whatever happened to the Masked Magician? Oh, he's like a phenomenon in another country now.
That's beautiful. I'm gonna have to read more about this because that I love that so much.
Yeah, it's very cool. But yeah, Cassadaga. This record starts off with Clairaudience, Kill or Be Killed, which finds the band kind of back on their sound collage bullshit in a way. Although I actually like this one more as a tone setter and as like a piece of production than I do most Bright Eyes intros.
Yeah, I especially love that these these clips were sourced from Connor actually calling like psychic hotlines. And then apparently when the record came out, he was still trying to clear the rights to use those clips, but then ultimately justified it by going, they knew, they're psychics, right?
I 100% do not believe a word he says about that.
I'm willing to buy it without question. I'm sorry to tell you.
It is great. Like it is great though. These clips of like a phone psychic, talking about Cassadaga, this place that's like you're going to find the center of energy. What is it? We have moved into a new era of life, and life as we know it is changing. Which is again like that kind of change in how the world has shifted and continues to shift is like obviously a big theme on this record too.
Yeah.
Allow me to share with you tips that will assist you during these times. I don't know. It's so good. And the orchestra isn't on this. It's like, it's all pitch shifted and the production is really cool on it. And then about 2 minutes in, you get to the actual song, which is a sort of quiet acoustic song, again, pretty typical of a Bright Eyes intro. But I think the song is really good too. Just this idea, it's sort of a song about the unstoppable movement of time and culture and politics, and sort of jab at the idea that infinite growth and infinite greed will lead to our destruction.
Yeah, we barrel through a lot of big ideas in a pretty short amount of time on this song, and again, like very like not atypical Bright Eyes material, but yeah, I do love that we start off this way and like just kind of immediately hit a lot of like big points for like we are at the end of the Bush era right now. Things have not in fact gotten better. We've just gotten further away from 9/11. And we end at would you agree times have changed, which is a hell of a way to close a song when you've been compared to Bob Dylan.
Right. And so this, one of my like kind of favorite running things about this record is like, as much as he is kind of blanched at the Dylan comparison, he is not beaten it on this record. Like it is.
No, the allegations are not being beat.
This is his most Dylan-esque record. And not in just like a, dude writes long songs or whatever, which he does. But it's his vocal inflections, a lot of the imagery, and whether he wants it or not, like I think he's I'm not saying he's better than Dylan or whatever, like that's, you can debate that or not debate it and take it as that Dylan is the greatest, which I think is basically how Connor looks at it. But like he's pulling from similar traditions, and I think that the sort of stylistic changes on this record make it even more apparent that influence.
Yeah, I think you're spot on with that.
Yeah, the orchestra gets so big at the end of this, it's awesome. Yeah, I don't know. I like that Would You Agree times have changed as like a sort of jab at the sort of, and this is again, I feel like he's ahead of the times on a lot of his cultural criticism on this, because it feels like a jab at the sort of boomer nostalgia thing. It's like, you can sing the times they are changing or whatever, but a lot of people who do that are also sort of very focused on the past. And it's like, no, everything is different now. And it's just a way to sort of bring that home before getting into Four Winds. Yeah.
And it's going to keep rolling forward long after this song wears out its welcome with you.
Yeah. So Four Winds, this was the first single, which I love the little interview. He sarcastically was like, we pick our first singles based on how short and fast they are.
Yeah,
that was very funny.
It's great. Is it under 5 minutes? Does it have a sufficiently fast BPM? Print it.
Yeah, which is like, he's like obviously like, sort of jabbing at at sort of the way a major label would pick a single, but also it's kind of true.
It's a little true.
Yeah. But this was the song that hooked me on this album. I remember hearing this as a single and hearing that fiddle, and it's like, it's like, it's kind of country, but it's also kind of its own Bright Eyes thing. It's got Connor's vocals. I just love this intro. Goes twice as long as it should, but I love every second of it.
Oh yeah, it's one of those things where every single time I'm listening to it, I'm like ready for the lyrics to come in, and I'm like, wait, nope. We've got a whole other iteration of the intro.
Yeah,
and it goes so hard that it does not matter. I don't mind any. I would take 3 more iterations of that, honestly. Maybe not 3. Yeah, but like 1 more would be fine.
So, I'm going to use talking about this fiddle part to mention. We had a listener send us an email. And Colin Bailio, he has an ongoing project on his blog called A Thick Mist of Change, where he's doing these deep dives into every song on this album. I believe he said this is his favorite album of all time. And these essays if you are a fan of Bright Eyes or this album at all, these are absolutely worth reading. I've read as much of them as I could. They're not all done yet. He's doing about 1 a month. These essays are amazing. They're like personal essays, and they're sort of diving into histories of the songs and all the lyrical allusions and the musical. Like, he's discussing this stuff way more in depth than we can on this podcast, and also is smarter than me for sure.
Same, honestly.
And but the essay on Four Winds has an interview with Anton Patzner, who is the fiddle player on this album, or violin player, I guess. What's Jason Isbell say? It's a fiddle when you buy it, and it's a violin when you sell it. And but his story is fascinating, and I think I just want to tell it on this because it's pretty cool. That he was in this sort of like string death metal band where they would play like metal riffs and on like a violin and cello, and then sometimes with a drummer, and they would just busk outside of shows to promote themselves. And they were big Cursive fans, so they played outside of a Cursive show, and the Cursive watched them, and they gave Greta Cohn, Cursive's cello player, gave them her contact information. And he reached out when they were putting out a record and was like, hey, you should listen to our record or whatever. And she wrote back and was like, our friend's band needs a fiddle player. It's going to be like, you're going to tour all year and you're going to play on their album or whatever. And he was like, okay, cool. And it was Bright Eyes.
Our friend's band. Amazing.
Yeah.
True, but.
Right. But like this, it's just kind of a fascinating thing. And he rocks on this record and on the live sessions for this album. It's so cool to hear him play. And I think he talked about like he just kind of jammed on this for a while, and he said Mike Mogus took like a bit of it and looped it, and that's the intro. But I mean, yeah, that's I just love the way the song starts, and that's before even getting into the lyrics and the song proper, which is like one of my favorite Bright Eyes songs.
Yeah, this is probably top 5 for me, if I'm real honest with you right out the gate.
You just you like it as like the apocalyptic parts of it, just the wordplay. What speaks to you about it?
It's really kind of the whole package. Like it is by and large the fiddle part, but yeah, then like you get past this like really, really incredible intro, and then the song just keeps being really good. Like it doesn't, you don't fall off after that. You're like bought in right away. Like we get a chorus that starts off with "When Great Satan's Gone." Like, come on, that's good shit right there.
Yeah, and like there's the Pitchfork review kind of I think singles out this song as being a little too like obvious or whatever, but like I think it works so well. I think even the lyrics are they're he's kind of attacking organized religion. He's attacking the sort of the U.S.'s interventionism in the Middle East, to a degree. That's all kind of in here, but it's all this. So the whole idea of Four Winds and the Whore of Babylon is all ties back to the Book of Revelation, and it's the apocalyptic overtones are there, and I just think it's the song that sort of feels like where do you go when it seems like the world is ending is kind of what I get from it.
Yeah, I would say that's pretty accurate. Yeah.
I mean, even the Bible's blind, the Torah is deaf, the Quran is mute. If you burn them all together, you get close to the truth. I feel like it's like an early, I really internalized that in my own like kind of grappling with my religious upbringing.
Yeah, and I mean, Connor kind of touches on this in interviews of like, yeah, man, like I don't really jive with organized religion. Like I do believe that like there's nothing inherently wrong with it, but I'd say its track record is pretty bad. So. And that's all we got is what people are doing with it. Like the pureness of the word doesn't mean anything if people are going to use it to their own ends.
Yeah. And I think this is, again, like he's an activist and writing kind of about activist topics well before a lot of his peers are. When in the the lyrics about the Dakota, there's off to old Dakota where a genocide sleeps, like this, way before anyone is doing, land acknowledgements or whatever. Like he's writing about this stuff in his songs. Yeah,
and that all, I think that came up in that Spin interview where I think the interviewer like outright asks him, "Are you disappointed in your peers for not talking about the things you're talking about until like now?" And he's like, "Yeah, like." Things have always been like pretty bad, especially like in the Bush administration. Like 9/11 happened, and then we entered the war in Iraq and the war in Afghanistan, and nobody really said anything because it wasn't like now it's safe to do that. Is like kind of where he ended on that, and like he also talks about when the president talks to God on the Late Show. Was that what it was on? He was apparently booked
it's on
to
Leno, I think.
Leno, okay.
No, that's on Letterman. I think the first TV appearance was on Leno. But
okay. So he was booked to do 2 other late night shows, and suddenly after that performance, both of those mysteriously fell through. Because it turns out it still wasn't okay to not be cool with George Bush in 2005, I guess, which is wild to me still in retrospect.
Yeah. It is weird to think about now.
Yeah. Well, because that was again 2005. That was several years after like the war got started in earnest. Well after 9/11, like you'd figure by then people would have been a little more willing to be critical.
Well, but that's also when he got reelected, like in one of the biggest landslide reelections ever in 2004.
Yes,
so that's
also that. Yeah. Yes.
So I mean, the punks hate him, but like he's still pretty popular.
This is what I get for hanging out with punks in high school, I guess.
You're already in the bubble then.
Yeah, good job, me.
I do just like how he places himself in the song in a sort of a negative light with, as I went back by rented Cadillac and company jet. Like he recognizes that he's been sucked into this, whether it's just specifically the music industry, which touches on in other songs, or just kind of the big corporate culture in general, just by nature of being a celebrity, is how I kind of take that line. And he's trying to get back to something that he feels like he's lost, and that's part of the reason he seeks out this like spiritual community.
Yeah, and this is a theme that appears on later songs too. But I mean, in casting himself in that negative light, like we do also get the like, I recognize that this is bad, and I'm trying to do something about it. Yeah.
Yeah, which I think is the sort of bent of a lot of his political lyrics, which are like, we got to recognize it, and like, what can I, just one guy, do?
Exactly, yeah.
And then after that, we get to If the Brakeman Turns My Way, a song that, as much as I was just like effusively praising Four Winds, I like even more. This song starts off with this kind of beautiful piano and organ verse and just builds up from there. I think this is, I would make the case that this is some of Connor's best writing. This song, and I mean this album generally, but especially this song. Every couplet, every line is so evocative to me.
Yeah, and I like the way the couplets are constructed in this song, and especially in like some of the verses. They're presented in an order you wouldn't expect. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's very, like, the song is very cool. And like kind of addresses these feelings of like kind of helplessness and just being kind of led along in life by forces outside of your control. Like this idea of the brakeman being the person who's effectively steering the train that you are on in this life.
This personification of fate and this, I think always ending each verse with this, got to find myself a place to level out, take a little time to level out. This idea of looking for some kind of contentment, some kind of way to be okay with the way that fate is taking you. Yeah. And bringing up that repetition of level out, like we do the classic Bright Eyes thing of like every verse ends with this idea of something leveling out. I think my favorite of those is
and this is like kind of almost too obvious for Bright Eyes, but I still like it. First a mother bathes her child, then the other way around. The scales always find a way to level out. Is good stuff.
Yeah, it's the cycles, it's the death and rebirth, and it's the. I mean, I find this song and this album really, but this song especially, just so comforting to listen to. I've had it stuck in my head all day, and it's just been like a little balm for me. I really love it.
Yeah.
I tried to pass for nothing, but my dreams gave me away is such a good lyric too. Like it's almost this like someone like, so I feel like he's casting himself as someone who's just like, I just need to create. I need to try to make something that is so big and so to capture everything that I'm feeling.
Yeah.
Two other things I want to call out about the song. In Colin's essay, he pointed out that each verse references a different drug, which I thought was an interesting sort of through line for the song.
How the hell did I not notice that?
I didn't notice it either. And I was like, oh yeah.
I'm always pointing out Connor's drug use. Come on.
Yeah. So that's a thing that it's another just kind of a thing that runs through the song, because it's an album that is at least in part about sort of rehabilitation and cleansing.
Yeah.
And then the last thing is in the bridge, there's the bit where it's it's an old world, it's hard to remember, like a dime store mystery. I'm a repeat first time offender who has rewritten history. Whatever Mogus is doing with the pedal steel in that, whether he is actually just like played something and reversed it, or is doing something to make it sound like he's reversed it, the pedal steel is making the song sound like time is going backwards, and thought that would just fit really, really well with the lyrics there.
Yeah, that's something that I feel like happens several times on this album, where like this kind of warbliness of time in a given situation is represented in the music. And this is a very like distinct one of those.
Yeah, there's another place on the album that I think is even more sort of important or textual, I guess.
Yeah.
After that is Hot Knives, which is kind of has a kind of a big 6/8 groove that gets even bigger in the middle of the song in a way that I think I like. Connor describes the song as about an average wife who realized that her husband has been unfaithful to her, and then goes on this huge metamorphosis. It's almost like a sort of a novelistic, scope of like, has a lot of sex, does a lot of drugs, and then eventually realizes he has to let go of her ego. What do you think of this song?
I think it's great. In that if I remember correctly, in that track by track that he did for NME, he says that she becomes another species, and I'm like, I don't think that's really true, like in the text at all, dude. You literally just say that she experiences ego death. Like that's a different thing than
that interview,
doing a Kafka.
That interview is the most like I'm fucking with you whether you realize it or not interview that I've ever seen. Yeah.
I like there were times in that where I was like, all right, yeah, and then like some of the descriptions were just like so vague that I was like, okay, I know you're not even trying right now. And then he got to that one, and I was like, all right, you know what? I should have known. I should have known this was an unreliable narrator situation the whole time. But it's fine.
Yeah.
Media literacy is hard, and sometimes you just got to take advantage of that.
Yeah. I kind of mentioned this before. I really like the way that the song evolves in the third verse, bridge, whatever it is. There's this like, it goes into this more straightforward stomping 6/8. I just think that is kind of musically where the song really picks up for me. Oh yeah, for sure. There's a part earlier on too that it's literally in the first verse. That ends with both of us must suffer from the same unending ace. And that's like, there's like just the piano under it. Like the way the song waxes and wanes, like in its first parts, is really cool. But yeah, then like when everything really kicks in, it's just great. Yeah. And you said the same unending ache, the same like. Oh, I said ace instead of ache. Whoop, my bad. Oh, that's I wrote down the wrong line. But and there's your usual Bright Eyes lyrics about cycles, this oscillation that we can pinpoint and all this pink noise at the end, and then it was even the character in the song goes to see a mystic. Like it all ties back to the ideas of the album. Yeah. After that is Make a Plan to Love Me, which is kind of certainly a ballad. There's something about it that feels like a classic film score to me. This song feels like totally outside of anything Bright Eyes has done before, but I think it's very good.
Yeah, like this is, I described the whole arrangement as lush, which is not really something I would say about any other Bright Eyes song, and not like in a bad way, just like, yeah, this sounds like nothing else anywhere else in the catalog, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, this is, you can hear they're really using the orchestra to their full potential on this one. Lyrically, it's a song about basically loving someone who has a lot going on in their life and you're trying to figure out where you fit in. Which is something I feel like I've been on the other side of sometimes.
Sure, yeah. Yeah.
But I love even just like I heard you're scheming new pyramids it's a good lyric. It's like, the layers of, is he talking about Ponzi schemes? Is he just talking about like building a new great wonder of the world? Like you could take it either way, and how much like earnestness you see or value you see in what this person is pursuing.
Yeah, yeah. Also, just like the kind of going back to this doesn't really sound like much else that we've ever heard from these folks. The like group vocals on the like response to Make a Plan to Love Me later on in the song is so like, it's so in line with the way the rest of the song is arranged that it hurts.
Yeah.
And I mean that in a good way. It's like, oh yeah, of course it sounds like this here. There's a lot of like other cool arrangement stuff that's happening. There's like some like wordless vocals that are doing arpeggios like down in the mix somewhere. Yeah, I don't know. It's just, this whole song is very impressive in a way that like it is so singular in its vision. And like, but yeah, like to the point of the kind of lyrical content, like, yeah, that is a very relatable thing for many people, I am sure.
Yeah.
Like maybe not necessarily people who are like doing get rich quick schemes is how I interpreted that first bit. But who can say?
Yeah, when you're young, the world's a Ferris wheel. I know we grow old; it's lovely still, and it's good. Again, this is my usual. Like, I'm just gonna just quote like every lyric in a lot of these songs, and I don't know. I think this is just a kind of a really good like change of pace for this album.
Yeah, for sure.
And then it kicks into Soul Singer in a Session Band, which is another one of my favorites. This is like a to use a word that Connor has made fun of in an interview before. I think it's kind of a rollicking song. It has this song has like a real ass chorus in it, which is part of the reason I fell in love with this. Yeah, it opens with it. Part of the reason I fell in love with this album especially, is that like I think it has real hooks, it has real choruses. Even the lyrics change between each chorus less than they do, I think, on other albums. And I find this, every song I feel like has a hook or almost every song, at least on this first half of the record, has a hook that I feel like is, I listen to the album and it's in my head for days or weeks on end.
Yeah. This album is hookier than any other thing we've heard from this band thus far. And not thinking too far ahead, maybe the hookiest thing that we will ever hear from this band.
I think so. I like later Bright Eyes records, but this one hits a high that I don't think they ever quite repeat.
Yeah, that's completely fair.
Yeah. So Connor describes the song as being just kind of about the people who are stuck in situations that they don't want to be in, sort of the alienation of people from the results of their work. And it also is kind of just about the music industry in a way. If you want to take it sort of more at face value, what do you hear in this one as far as like interpretations?
I mean, I totally understand the kind of broad, like at face value. Yes, it is definitely about this kind of idea of, somebody on Genius goes so far as to say this is about Marxist theory of alienation. I'm like, I don't think it goes quite that deep. Like that's a complicated thing, but also like we are all doing post-industrialization type work these days. So it kind of always is about that.
Yeah. And you can tie that back to clairaudience and the like, the idea of infinite growth or whatever is, you could make that connection pretty easily.
Yeah, exactly. And any given person in, in a society is such a small part of that. It's so far removed from whatever is produced by that like, yeah, you do feel this sense of alienation. But I really love this framing device of like such a specific thing, this soul singer in a session band, this person who like clearly strives for more but can't break out of the situation that they're in because of the way that everything's been structured around them.
Yeah, and you know what is like kind of interesting about this as like a grounding image for this song is that like if you take this song to be about, again, like people's disconnect from their work, like to look at it now, it's like this is still a musician who gets to make money from their career, allegedly, make money with their talent, even if they're not, they don't maybe get paid to make the art they want to make. I think as times have shifted now, I'm just like, oh, you get to play music for a living? That rules. As opposed to just like, oh, that's a bummer that you can't like make the art that you want to make, which it is. But like at the same time, like I would take that over like a corporate job for sure.
Well, I mean, and that might be part of it, is like the kind of the function of obviously if you're in a situation like this, again, like we're really like digging at this at face value, but I feel like it's kind of important, especially for a song being sung about it. Like there's always going to be this weird thing around art where like people by and large believe that you should just be willing to do it for free all the time. And like, if you get paid to do it, you are incredibly lucky. But like, there is, depending on your reasons for getting into it, which I don't think very many people decide to make music to make money these days. But I do think that like a person in this situation would feel a pain, and there would be not very many people who understand that. Because like, yeah, you are so lucky to be able to get to do this. And like, you almost feel like you shouldn't be able to complain, but there's just something nagging at you about like the situation you're in,
Yeah. Well, and I think you can take that right back to Connor's like sort of disillusion, which he's written about before, with the idea of having to perform his emotions over and over again. And maybe that's more the soul singer in a session band metaphor is more like, I get to play my own music or whatever, but I have to, to recreate that emotion every night in order to perform it in a way that feels fake to me. Like, that's what shreds you.
Yeah.
That's one way to look at it too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this was kind of the thing we ran into in when we were talking about kind of the end of MCR when they called it the first time, like Gerard got on stage and felt like he was acting.
Yeah, totally.
And like, I feel like that's just a thing that Connor is constantly dealing with.
Yeah. And again, like it's just interesting to have a song that is dealing with that on an album that I think is like more adventurous and more maybe true to what this band wants to make and wants to be.
Yeah.
We have to talk about I had a lengthy discussion about the power of myth with a postmodern author who didn't exist. This is a lyric that I remember kind of sort of like hooking on this lyric as a kid. And when I first heard this record, I just thought that it was I just thought it was a really interesting couple of phrases. Then two, I thought it was about Thomas Pynchon for a while. But
sure.
what it is actually about, based on a couple of interviews and history, is that there was this author named J.T. Leroy who had released a couple of books allegedly about their like novels that were allegedly based on their real life that were very harrowing, and they had been through some crazy stuff or whatever. And they were kind of one of those like mysterious writers or whatever, like, Pynchon-esque in a way. But
sure.
They had reached out to Connor wanting to write the liner notes for Digital Ash and I'm Wide Awake, which I was trying to find, have not been able to find. If those are out there somewhere. But regardless, Connor talks about in this interview, like going to meet someone who allegedly was JT Leroy. And as years later, this all comes out that like there was an actor who was playing JT Leroy in public and the writer was someone else. And it's this very crazy thing. Colin's essay has a big deep dive on it. There's a lot you can read about this. But Connor talks in one of these interviews about, like, yeah, I went and chatted with this person. We talked about the power of, like, we talked about Joseph Campbell, we talked about like fiction and all this stuff, and like this lyric is like literally just a story of like a thing, very strange thing that happens like in this fictitious world, all reality twists.
It's always beautiful when you kind of think that you've just got this cool set of lines that's just like really evocative, and then it turns out it's like no, this just actually happened.
Yeah. And then, I mean, and I think you get to, I just totally skipped over, I was a hopeless romantic, now I'm just turning tricks, which again feels like a nod to this idea of performative emotion or whatever that he is getting at.
Yeah, exactly. Like you as a person change, like obviously you felt those emotions at one point, but like one, maybe you don't want to relitigate them. Two, maybe that's not how you feel anymore at all, and you like just don't feel a connection to them. Like any way you twist it, like if you're not feeling it anymore, that kind of sucks.
Yeah. If we go from one incredible song into another, this back to back is amazing. With Classic Cars up next.
God, I love Classic Cars.
It's so good. This is like, another kind of like country lilting one a little bit, but like, this is like an incredible melody, another incredible set of lyrics that is widely speculated to be about Connor's relationship with Winona Ryder. And whether it is or not, I think that's an interesting lens to, sort of look at the song through. But man, every image in the song, it adds up, to something that is kind of perfect to me.
Yeah. Like this song feels very grounded, and like part of it is that like potential, background on it. But like, even if it wasn't about a specific like person, it's just about this older woman that you're in a relationship, older than you, like not older, like full stop. I imagine at this point, Winona Ryder still looking great. Anyway, we watched Beetlejuice when I was at my parents' house last night, so she's at the top of mind for me.
Yeah,
but yeah, I don't know, like this. I like from the first verse, like you get, she was a real royal lady, true patron of the arts. She said the best country singers die in the back of classic cars. So if I ever get too hungry for a suitcase or guitar, to think of that when I'm all alone, or to think of them all alone in the dark. Like, man, you're doing a lot with a little there.
Yeah, it's a warning, and it's a meditation on the idea of movement, on the idea of like contentment or lack thereof. Like it's a lot of the album's themes summed up in that one couplet.
Yeah, exactly. And kind of like hints at like how he felt about like hearing that, assuming that this was born of an actual conversation, which I would totally believe.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I assume is like, probably about a mix of people and a lot of different conversations. He talks about like a lot of his songs are sort of patchwork in that way. But they feel, whole. To call out another couple lyrics, everything's a cycle, you got to let it come to you. As when it does, you will know what to do. Stuff like that is I've always, again, another song that I've always just found very resonant. So the line the thing that I think is like interesting to look at through whether this is about Winona Ryder or not, the idea of a person who had success and fame and had become an icon in her own right very young, and then was kind of at a point in her career, this is obviously this sort of, she has this big revival around Stranger Things and some other big movies that she's in, over in the past 10 years. But I feel like this is a little bit of a lull in her career, unless I'm like missing something obvious. But I just, the verse where, she would lie about where she's from, saying life is how it is, not how it was, is this kind of, it feels like she's older and she has found this kind of acceptance of her place in her celebrity or in her life or whatever in her career, that I feel like Connor is looking for and hasn't found yet on this song. And the Winona Ryder thing like kind of opened that lyric up for me a little bit.
Yeah, that makes sense. Also, just kind of looking at the general timeline of her career, yeah, she was basically like on a kind of intentional hiatus from like 2001 to 2005. So that kind of slots into the time period that we're talking about here.
Yeah. Let's see. Anything else on this song? The bass is doing cool stuff in it.
The bass is doing cool stuff in it. I do, as maybe a little bit unkind as this line is, I do like the way it sounds. Never trust a heart that's so bent it can't break.
Yeah,
that's some heavy stuff, man.
Yep. Yes, it is. After that is Middleman. I will say, so I think this album is like basically perfect up through Classic Cars. Middleman is where I start just a little bit to like be like, I don't know if I love where it's going. I think this song has a lot of cool elements to it, but it's never quite landed perfectly for me. But it is another country leaning one. It's another fiddle driven one with Anton Patzner playing. I feel like it's very evocative of like Western movies in a way.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And the other thing musically that's interesting about this song is Mike Mogus talked about that they did the sessions they did in Chicago were with John McEntire of Tortoise, and they were largely based around adding percussion to the songs. And I think you can really hear that in the song. There's a lot of different hand drumming or other percussion going on in here that really sort of makes the groove.
Yeah. There's so much going on like right out the gate. Like we get, obviously we get some great fiddle. There's like bassoon or something in there, but like, yeah, the hand drums are like really what set this one apart, like from the go. Yeah, I like that a lot. I think I'm a little bit in line with you on like what I do and don't like about this song, in that like I think there's interesting bits. The whole like the conceit of the song is like talking about the idea of middlemen justifying their existence and that being their entire job, which I admire calling that out in a whole song.
I do too, but I also think that this is it is sort of a call out of that, but I think it's also on another level. I think he's like envious of the ability to live with the unknown that being able to say I don't know implies, Like,
oh yeah,
I think that it's sort of doing both things at once, because that in the Enemy interview where he's just like, middlemen convince people they're necessary, and I'm like envious. I think that's amazing or whatever. And he's obviously like being sarcastic, but I think he also is being a little bit serious there. And I think both of those layers come through in the song.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine that if you are kind of looking at that from the outside, like imagine being able to make a living just convincing people that you need to be around. like right. being the kind of person who can do that must be nice.
Right. Yeah. So the I don't know, the maybe so is the only real reply.
Yeah.
Next up is Cleanse Song, which this one I think is by all accounts more a very autobiographical song about going to LA and doing this what sounds horrible to me, like natural cleanse or whatever you have to do to get all the toxins out of your body.
Yeah, there's some gross stuff that comes with that. Yeah, I believe he actually uses the word colonic in the interview, yep. Which is great. Thank you for just saying that, Connor. I appreciate it.
Yeah, this is another one that like I've never really connected to. Although I think that the arrangement and the vocal effects are pretty cool in it.
Yeah, I think the arrangement works. I do like when we switch to kind of the faster vocal rhythms in this song. I think that hits pretty well, especially given like how like kind of washy the beginning of this song is, like how warbly some of the melodies get. And then we kind of lose that at the point where he sings "Take the Fruit from the Tree," and then like it comes back in. But like I feel like the contrasts in this song are really great.
Yeah, the contrast, and also the contrast of place, because this talks about Rome, Manhattan, LA, different neighborhoods in LA. Like it is kind of a Thailand by the end. It is kind of an all over the world sort of song, which like adds to the kind of one of the elements of this record, that it's about seeking and searching, and sometimes that is literal travel, and sometimes that is just like internal.
Yeah. Also, I don't know how true this is, but according to somebody on Genius, a very trustworthy source, as we all know, the lines of a millstone house in a seaside town when your heart gave out on a mission or in a mission bed might be a reference to Chrono Cross, the PlayStation video game. I've never played that one. I've played Chrono Trigger, but apparently that one's experiencing a bit of a revival now. I think there was a remaster or something.
Okay,
so,
I haven't played either of those games.
Chrono Trigger is great. I've never finished it, but it's one of those games where like you can technically beat it in like a very short amount of time because you can just like approach the final boss whenever. But then you miss all the cool story stuff. So why would you do that unless you're speedrunning? I guess I don't know. But anyway, just wanted to point that out because I thought that was neat.
Yeah. Yeah, and then it just ends with this, like, you know, the wind when it blows is older than Rome, and our joy and sorrow. Again, another sort of very Bright Eyes idea that we're all just one. You know, the world goes on long before and long after us.
Yeah.
Next up is No One Would Riot for Less, which is largely the kind of the quietest, slowest song on the record, although it has, you know, the big orchestral stuff in it too. This is a song that is kind of described as a love song that takes place after the world's oil reserves run out, which is I think an interesting idea. This is the song that doesn't work for me on this record.
Okay, interesting. What specifically doesn't work for you?
I think that after two, you know, so there's Soul Singer, Session Band, and Classic Cars. It's like 1-2 punch of like basically perfect songs to me. And then it gets slower and spacier, and it just, by the time this sort of third slower, spacier song in a row is the slowest and spaciest of them all, I am just kind of like, okay, I want this to pick up again. Like, where are we going? It's I don't know how, like, thematically it works with the record, and you know, musically if I listen to the song in isolation, they're doing really interesting stuff. The orchestra swells up in the bridge in a way that is awesome. I just, you know, especially hearing some of the other stuff that was written for this record, I would trade it for like almost anything from these sessions.
I think that's very fair. I didn't mean to like just put you on the spot because I was going to come in and be like, no, this is the best song on the record. No, like I like this song fine. No, I think this. I like that this song is here because I think that the subject matter is very interesting. But yeah, I think sonically, like, this song like kind of makes it feel like the record is losing its way a little bit. So like, yeah, I as much as I do like it, I would either trade it for a different arrangement of this song or trade it for maybe some song off of the Four Winds EP, because I think those songs kind of all bang. And fit pretty well in the sonic palette of this record. It feels like we kind of take the like you said, this is the slowest and the spaciest of like our kind of slower and spacier trio, and like it feels like it just goes a few feet too far in a direction that like isn't as interesting as I want it to be.
Yeah, that's basically where I'm at. One thing that I think is kind of interesting about the song though is in one of the Mike Mogus interviews that I read, he talks about their time at Capitol Studios in Los Angeles, which they had booked to do the orchestral, or the orchestra recordings. And they said he said they booked 2 days. They showed up. The orchestra is obviously incredible and knocked it all out in one. And so he had a whole second day booked at Capitol. So he went there and they have this very famous reverb chamber at Capitol Studios. Like, it's been made into plugins that you can buy and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
To emulate it. Yeah. And he's like, I just ran everything through the big reverb chamber. And I think I'm pretty sure that the vocals at the beginning of this with that really long tail reverb that they have, it must be from those sessions.
That would make a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah. The next up is Coat Check Dream Song, which is admittedly like kind of another slow one, although I think there's kind of more interesting elements on this album or on the song than a couple of the other ones. But this is the one Connor describes as the most natural song on the record. He calls it sounding like being underwater or in a womb, which is kind of interesting. It really is. It is a dream, and it does a lot musically to make it feel like a dream.
It does, yeah. And like we've kind of talked about the fact that Connor doesn't shy away from like dream imagery or like trying to allude to dreams. I think this song maybe accomplishes that pretty well. Like kind of evoking this dream feeling, both like sonically and like this is like a series of discrete images, and they all kind of overlap in ways which is like not terribly common for Bright Eyes. So I think it really works as that kind of song. Yeah, it does kind of occupy a similar space as No One Would Riot for Less. But I feel like it pushes us in a like a little bit more of a like, oh, I've got something like to focus in on here that song doesn't necessarily have.
Yeah, I think there's all of the imagery that sort of piles on these like again modern versus the past imagery, like lullaby sounds from an engine, stuff like that, and old Black Globe's old symbols of freedom, and then but it uses it in a way to like tie to these like walked into the winter, came out on the other side, this that I think, or fell back through the other side later in the song, like that I think it ties it to the mediums and the spiritualism of Cassadaga, the community. I think is sort of, I think that the dream in this song is also sort of the seance.
Yeah, definitely.
It's one of those things that like, it's ethereal and ghostly, and I don't know if I like love it, but it's certainly interesting, and it makes, if this one feels like it has a real place on this album.
Yeah, I think so. I do like it, or like how it ends with a phrase I'm not going to try to pronounce because I don't speak Arabic. But it translates to happiness is complete with freedom. I think it's literally translated as happiness is total with freedom. But like, I think that's a apt way to finish off the song.
The Pitchfork review is pretty anti this part of the song. They feel like Brian Howe, I think, is who wrote the Pitchfork review. He called this part of the song, he thought it was like kind of a culturally appropriative thing, the way that like, I don't know, the McCartney or Paul Simon or some of like the older pop musicians had gotten really into world music, and it seemed like that was really appropriative too.
That's not an unfair criticism. I will give you that. Like it straddles that weird line between this feels more correct when said like this versus like if it had just literally been
the English translation.
It wouldn't have it would have felt almost corny. But again, like maybe using that in that way is in fact appropriative. In which case, yeah, maybe that sucks, and now I feel bad for pointing it out as a good thing. But
no, it's fine, because I think it is both effective, and but then like the reasons why it's effective to add to the sort of the sort of strangeness or the otherworldliness or the dreaminess of the song, you can you can say that it works while also saying like, well, it works because it is leaning into the otherness of another language or culture or whatever.
Yeah, that is fair.
But yeah, I think it's I don't know. I'm curious how much they've played the song live, and if that's still something that he like the king kind of leans into or does. I didn't really look that up.
Yeah, I've only seen them play a few times, but I definitely have never seen this song live.
Yeah. All right. Next song is "I Must Belong Somewhere." If we're getting to the home stretch of the album here, the song rules. I feel like we're like 100% back on this one. Yep. Yeah. I mean, this was one that, along with Four Winds and Classic Cars, were like the ones that originally like truly hooked me on this record and Soul Singer. Like I love all 6 minutes of the song. I wouldn't cut a single second from it.
I think that's completely fair. And in a world where we are often saying that Connor could use an editor at his side at all times, kind of glad he didn't have one on this one. Yeah.
Yeah. This is a song that he says he wrote at the height of a panic attack. and his like centering, calming methodology was to just name everything that was around him and list it all and think of its place in the world, not where it was designed to be, but where it is. And it's another list song. Just every line is just leave the something somewhere, and it's just I find it calming and sort of like centering also to just listen to, like, because you think about every image and it's like, yeah, that is where it is.
Yeah. What I think I like most about this song is that we have this leave and stay dichotomy, but in the context of the song, they mean the exact same thing. We are leaving this thing in the place that it currently is. Thus, it is staying. I am also staying where I am right now. Or more accurately, maybe I am leaving myself where I am right now because I must belong somewhere.
Yeah, and it's like, and you can take that, the leaving is also leave something alone, like,
yeah,
and therefore move on to something else, and like it's another sort of kind of an exploration. It's a movement in its own way, even though nothing is moving.
Yeah, it's clever. We'll just call it that.
Do you how like sincere do you think the song is? Because there's an interpretation of this song that it's very like biting and cynical.
I would buy that it's biting and cynical. Like I actually kind of think that's where I lean a little bit. I don't know that it's like I wouldn't argue that it's not up for interpretation at all. Like I could be totally convinced otherwise, but like the feeling I get from this song is this is not a good thing. This is settling derogatory in a way.
Right. Like is it about acceptance or is it about fatalism?
Yeah, I would argue that it maybe leans more the latter.
Yeah, it's tough because the bridge kind of turns the song on its head a little bit.
It does, yeah.
It uses that in truth as in to say like this, what I'm about to say in this bridge is actually, I've been lying the rest of the song. Here's the real truth. And the real truth is that, the world doesn't need us. The world requires no audience, no witnesses. Like it's going to go on without you. And that, I think, sort of, that's sort of another check mark or tick mark on the side of this song being a little more negative than I think the melody or even the sort of feeling of it would imply.
Yeah. And it's starting off with like the forest hears each sound, like turns the old like tree falls in a forest thing on its head. Like it's all, it is very much like, the often cited like, listen, no, we're not. I know we always talk about how we're destroying the earth, and like, yes, functionally for our purposes we are, but the earth's gonna be here until the sun eats it. Like, it's gonna go on with or without us, and like we are only hurting ourselves and other creatures who have adapted to live on Earth as it is now. Like, right, and that is something that Connor is very well aware of at all times, I think.
Right, and then you get to the line like "leave the hawks of war in their capitals" is like even that is like that's one that feels like, well, don't even try to do anything because the Republican Party is gonna destroy our planet and our country anyway. Which is like that a way more negative interpretation than like, again, I feel good when I listen to the song even, but you do, there is that kind of cynicism bubbling underneath it.
Yeah, and I think that that's lent to by the fact that like the very end of this song is like so musically unresolved. We don't land on the tonic or anything like that, which like isn't something that they like haven't done before, but like it feels so heavy at the end of this song that like we don't get any like final breath at the end of it.
Yeah. I love the they locked the devil in the basement, threw God up into the air. I just, that like flippant description of how religious orthodoxy comes about. I think it's just really fun.
It's really good.
Tickles me.
When I came across that for the first time in a while, I like literally rewound the song. I was like, did I hear that right? Oh, that rules.
Yeah. I don't know. You could get into like every image in the song. Like we've already, this is already probably going to be our longest episode. So I won't. But I'll say there's a demo of this song that's out there. I don't know where it came from, but I found it in a Google Drive folder on Reddit. And there's no drums in it. It's just acoustic guitar and slide, but it's proof that this great song was always great.
Yeah, it feels pretty much fleshed out in terms of like what it is supposed to convey. It's just a couple of things got added in the final recording, and that's kind of it.
Yeah, it's a great tune.
I do want to quickly shout out the cool stop motion music video for this one.
It's really good.
It's really good. And I'm glad we got another stop motion video on an album that has just two other videos that are, them playing in a room. In one, they do get stuff thrown at them, so that's fun.
Yes.
But
yeah.
Anyway.
All right. Lime Tree is the closing track on this record, which is sort of like a collection of stories about Connor and his friends. Some of one sort of references an abortion. Some of it is just kind of him walking around New York, I think. And it's a very somber closer, more so than any of the recent album closers they've had.
Yeah, it definitely like this almost feels like if if I'm Wide Awake It's Morning had ended with Poison Oak instead of Road to Joy. In a way. Yeah,
it's a good comparison.
And I don't mean that as a bad thing. Like I think it's a pretty good closer. It is way more somber than pretty much any other closing track we've had thus far.
I think it's tough to come down from I Must Belong Somewhere into this song. I don't know how I feel about the sequencing. I think this song is kind of essential as a closing track to this record. I think a lot of the imagery in it ties up the album. I mean, when I hear beautiful music, it's always from another time. This idea that like it touches on like the fetishization of the past, and then you get to there's a lot of walking, a lot of travel, and then a lot of like there's this idea of what's the lyric? Talking about eating fruit. Some are ripe when some are rotten. I felt nauseous from the truth. There will never be a time more opportune. This idea that like there's not going to be time's going to pass, and there's not going to be a better time to go look for what you want. And then to have it end with this line, like I took off my shoes and walked into the woods. I felt lost and found with every step I took. Is like the search continues. You might find something, you might learn something about yourself, but you'll never like there's no completion, there's no end, which is just very similar to Light Pollution on Digital Ash or Teresa and Tomas. This idea of like escape and losing and finding yourself at the same time is something that I think Connor is sort of really interested in.
Yeah, well, and I mean we get all of that in that last chorus, because the start of the last chorus, big air quotes, it's labeled as a chorus on Genius. Sorry, everybody. Right. But like that last bit starts with "so pleased with the daydream that now living is no good." Like that's the escapism right there. Like we get that, and then we get the like the earnest like return to the search. And yeah, it thematically feels like it sums up a lot of things, but I sonically. Yeah, it's a little bit of a tough turnaround from the last song.
Yeah, it just adds to my feeling that the whole like back half of this record is a little, I don't know how to put it. I don't want to say haphazard, because I don't think it's that. I think it's intentional that the further into the search you get, the more sort of out there the feelings get and the music gets, but. Just purely as a listening experience, I think that this album kind of winds down really early in a way that isn't particularly satisfying to me.
I think kind of where I land with it is that the first half of this album feels like it has such this strong stated sonic identity, and it like really commits to that. And then we kind of like, we don't take a 180, but we take like a 75-degree turn, I want to say, and then we kind of just like keep scooching forward 5 degrees, if we're going to hold that metaphor, and like it feels like I don't want to say lose something, because like I do like a lot of the songs in the back half of this album, but like it feels like we made a statement and then we kind of went on a tangent, and like it still all feels like it kind of ties together. It like we've already talked about how this all, like, despite the disparate nature of its recording and, kind of by extension, the disparate nature of its songs, like it does all tie together pretty well into a package. But like, again, like in terms of flow, like it does feel like, it feels like something happens, like something distinct happens, and it doesn't really make sense why it does, unless you are really looking at it as like the journey gets weirder from here, but then we like have this kind of like return to form towards the end, and then have another departure right after it.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It's one of those things where it's like I always feel weird trying to like, if I gave this album a star rating, it's like it is a weird thing where like half of it's perfect and half of it is so not like flawed to me, but just like it's never gripped me in the same way. But yeah, I love this album as an idea, as a journey, even if like some of the steps of it don't always land for me.
Yeah, I think, in a lot of ways, this is a prime example of the whole is greater than some of its parts in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I could see that. I'd be curious. I don't know. I've never like really tried to do an alternate track list for this album. I know there was one blog post that we found where someone did try to do that, which I thought their track list was insane. But maybe I will someday try to see if I can come up with what feels like a Cassadaga that's more the album that I want, which is probably just going to include a lot of like the more rockin' B-sides.
That's fair.
Yeah, which I mean, so we're going to get into the B-sides. We're going to do them somewhat quickly because this is, again, as I said, probably our longest episode, but this album is very thematically deep and interesting. So a bunch of these were released on the Four Winds EP, which was their traditional, we put out a single with some B-sides a few months before the album. These songs are all really good. We don't have to go deep on every one of them, but I think that Reinvent the Wheel is great. It's sort of a duet with Jenny Lewis. Wait, is this the one with the Jenny Lewis bit? No, that's a different song.
Yeah.
Nope, sorry, I was wrong. That's Napoleon's Hat. No, the Rilo Kiley thing is that this song is a tribute to Elliott Smith, who obviously Rilo Kiley also was paid tribute to on More Adventurous. But I love that song. I love Cartoon Blues. I love Tourist Trap. I don't know. What do you think of this stuff on this EP?
I also like all of these songs. I like my literal first statement on Reinvent the Wheel is this song rocks. And yeah. I called Cartoon Blues rollicking. I didn't say it about any other songs, even though I did mean it about other songs earlier on this episode. I like Stray Dog Freedom a lot too. But yeah, I feel like Tourist Trap is a really great way to round out the EP. It's like minimal compared to everything else, but I really like it. It has like a almost dirgy harmonica solo, which I find very intriguing.
What would you think of Cassadaga if Tourist Trap was the closing track instead of Lime Tree?
That's a great question.
Because I think it would work. Song, it has like a very end of album idea to it, which is, I'm coming back to the place where I was born. I'm reassessing the place that I grew up, and it all looks different and feels different because I am different now. And I don't know if I fit there anymore. And like it has a different kind of, well, I guess the journey continues from here ending. It's a similar idea, but just done a little bit differently than Lime Tree. I don't know if it would work, but it was something I was thinking about.
Yeah, I'm glad it's presented as the closer here, but yeah, I think I do agree that like it maybe wouldn't slot in quite as well thematically, but it is hitting a lot of similar notes. You're right.
Yeah. There's a few other sort of one-offs. There was Endless Entertainment, which was a song just released on their website. Another rocker, really good song, I think. Great horn parts in it. There's Napoleon's Hat, which is from a Hurricane Katrina relief compilation. This is the song that Jenny Lewis does backing vocals on, which this is one that I would probably put on the record, although I think this particular recording of it is almost unlistenable because of how the hand drumming is mixed. But the companion version is much better. Yeah. Assuming that that's somewhere in line with what like an album version of that song would have sounded like, it would have been perfectly fine. Yeah. Then there's Susan Miller Rag and Big Old House, more just, I don't know, more stuff from this era, very, very fertile era of Bright Eyes. I don't know, anything else on the B-sides before we get to the companion EP?
I just want to quickly mention that Susan Miller Rag was originally released on a 3-inch CD that you got for pre-ordering Cassadaga, I think within the first X copies, which I think is great.
Sick. I wish I had that.
I wish I had that too.
Yeah, so I mean, like I said, they recorded 25 to 30 songs. We've covered many of them. And you get some more on the companion EP. So this companion EP came out this was probably like 2023 when this one came out. Because they were recording this into 2022. This is the point where there's an interview on the After the Deluge podcast with where Justin Cox interviews Connor, and Connor's talking about how by the time that they were when they agreed to do this companion EPs project, when they signed to Dead Oceans, they were like, yeah, this will be fun. We'll just record some old songs, and didn't quite internalize how much work it would take to rearrange and record 54 songs.
Yeah.
And this is the companion EP where you can tell this is near the end of the project, I think, because it feels like they're just kind of playing genre darts with these, and they're like, well, what if we did this in a Throws at the Dartboard? Let's do it as a jazz tune, or let's do it as a post-punk song. Like, I like a lot of this EP, but I feel
It's
like you
wild,
can hear the fatigue. Yeah.
It does not have a central thesis the way the other ones seem to have.
Right. Like, Clear Audience is a punk song. Cool. That kind of fits with the lyrics. I understand that. I was gonna say like Jazz Middleman is like again a genre darts thing, but based on the liner notes, that one and the version of Napoleon's Hat that are on this are actually from the original Cassadaga sessions. So I guess there was an idea to do Middleman that way from the beginning.
That's wild, man. Like, there's some nutty stuff on that one.
Yeah, it's cool. I love when it gets
cool,
loud.
Yeah.
What do you think of I Must Belong Somewhere on this?
I said that it has 80s movie montage energy.
It kind of does. It's like synth and beat driven. This was the other one. I was just like, they drew this out of a hat. Like, it doesn't really make sense to me. It's kind of cool. I don't know how much I'll go back and listen to it. But it's there. I don't know.
Yeah,
Not going to touch the original.
I don't like it anywhere near as much as the original. But yeah, I didn't hate it. I just like I kept going through it, and I was like, I don't dislike this, but this feels wrong.
Yeah. And then, like I said, this version of Napoleon's Hat is really awesome. This feels
great.
like it should be on the album, in my opinion, from, the lyrical themes to just the vibe of it even just the way that each verse ends with the something about don't let yourself forget when the times get good, or a different like turn on the times get good idea. A lot of the Cassadaga songs are written with that that structure.
Yeah, it is very in line with like kind of the writing style of the album in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and then the Jillian Welch cover at the end of the EP. It's great. All the covers on these I think are really good.
Yeah, they nailed it on this one, and bringing in First Aid Kit for this cover was also a pretty inspired move.
Yep. Anything else on the companion EP?
I don't think so. Yeah, it feels way more disjointed than the other ones. Like even with like the I'm Wide Awake one being kind of a swing and a miss in some spots, like I at least felt like I got that. Like this one, I was just like, I'm not sure what we're doing here.
Yeah,
and they probably didn't really know either.
Yeah, it's a little more scattered, I guess.
Yeah.
All right, so that is. Oh wait, we got to do random recommendations.
Yeah,
I almost forgot. What do you got this week?
I'll make this quick. I just finished watching a short series on Netflix from a lot of the people who did BoJack Horseman. The show is called Long Story Short. It's like I hope there's gonna be more of it. But also it feels fairly self-contained. It's like 10 episodes. It's about it's kind of a time hopping animated series about a family and their interpersonal relationships with each other and with others and with people outside of their nuclear family who are still in the family. Touches on a lot of things like kind of falling out of love with your religion and the ways in which your family deals with that when it's still really important to them. Touches on like queer relationships and what growing up looks like in the 2010s and 2020s. But Yeah, it's constructed in this really interesting way where like you'll just get a big title card that tells you what year it is. You'll get allusions to things that have happened in the past that you have not seen on screen, and in some cases will never see on screen. And it does a great job of kind of balancing this kind of show don't tell with like telling you things that like you kind of have to flesh out in your own imagination. But it's animated by Lisa Hannawalt, who also did animation on BoJack Horseman and created and animated Toucan Birdie, one of my favorite shows of all time. So highly recommend if you're into animated series. It is not a very long time commitment. Yeah, long story short. What about you?
This week I'm going to recommend a book. My favorite author, Mark Z. Danielewski, who you may know from House of Leaves, he has a new book out tomorrow as we're recording this. So this, right around now when you're hearing it, next week or last week as you're hearing this. This book is called Tom's Crossing, and it is a book about two kids who take it upon themselves to save a pair of horses from being slaughtered and all that follows. It's a very different Danielewski book. It is it's long and dense. It owes a lot to, I think, Cormac McCarthy. It owes a lot thematically to Stephen King. But it is not sort of ergodic and oddly structured in the way that House of Leaves or Only Revolutions are. You open it up and you read it like a book, which is odd for Danielewski. Yeah, I think this book is just phenomenal. I was so excited about it that I bought an advanced copy on eBay earlier this year so I could read it early, and then I'll probably read it again over the next sometime in the next couple of years in the final version. But I think this thing is amazing. I don't know how you sell a 1,200 page Mark Danielewski book, but I hope it does well, because he had a series that he was working on that ended after, was supposed to be 27 books long. It ended after 5 because it didn't sell well. I hope people connect with this, because I think it's a really lovely, really grounded human story, despite the fact that there's also some supernatural stuff going on. It will take me an incredibly long time to get to reading this book, but I'm very excited to when it happens. Okay. Yeah, no, it's very good. All right, so that's it for this week. We will be back next week talking about The People's Key. In the meantime, you can follow us on Instagram at noisefloorpodcast or noisefloorpod. Find us on the internet at noisefloorpodcast.com and send us emails at noisefloorpodcast@gmail.com. And we will see you next week.
We'll see you next week.